Greetings Internet and welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're doing fantastically well. In this episode I'll be looking at Ambush by Victory Games, and this will be my sort of third dive into the rules. First episode we covered the basics, the formations, how to build the squad, etc. In the second episode we looked at operations, and this episode, what is an episode? In this episode, we'll be looking at actions, but only the first part of actions because it's a big chunk of the, and actual, I'd say that is the meat and potatoes, the bread and the butter, whatever other analogies you would like to make. This is the crunch of the system and how it all functions and joins everything together. So I'm going to actually break this down into two videos, okay? Because I don't want each one to go on for too long. I don't want you sitting there after about 5 minutes of me droning on going back. So let's go down to the rule book and the map and let's see what's going on. So as the rule book says, as you conduct operations and you go through those paragraphs, you will at some point read a paragraph that instructs you to activate Germans and commence rounds. Your play immediately switches at that point upon reading that paragraph. You will switch from operations to rounds. You then conduct action rounds until there are no more active Germans on the map, at which point you resume operations, but you only resume the operations at the end of that action round, not as soon as a German becomes inactive. You finish that action round and then you go into operations. As you enter new hexes, you will still consult the paragraphs, that little template, and activate or do whatever those paragraphs say when you activate any of your troops. However, if any of those say event check, you ignore, because event checks are done differently in action rounds. Action rounds are conducted in sequences. Now, I downloaded from Board Game Geek, and I've already showed this in one of my actual videos, but I'm going to show it again. Is this? It's a 3-page document and I found it most useful. So page 1 has all the actions split down between fire actions and move actions. So each one of these, and that will be done going through each of these actions in the next video, or the next rules dive video. Page 2 has the vehicle actions, and here is what we did in the previous episode. It breaks it down on what you do in operations. And then the final page here is the action round sequence, and then other little supplementary rules as we go through. As I say, this is on Board Game Geek on the file section for Ambush, and it's done by RUESTCHM, and I've said it's most valuable piece that I can recommend. So let's go through what we actually do in the action sequence. The activation paragraph will call for a specific German, find his card and place the activated German on the map and his action round marker on the action round track. Wow, there's quite a bit there, isn't there? So, what does that actually mean? When we activated this German by the paragraph in the battle we're fighting, German N, found his N. I then also found his card, which has got N, but it told me in the paragraph to activate German 2, which turned out to be N, which told me which counter to place, which then allowed me to place his activation marker based on his initiative, which is 5, onto the action track, which we'll be coming to shortly. So he will actually sit in paragraph in column 5, currently in the complete section, and that's him ready to go. I've removed all the American markers and I'll explain why when we get there. So that's what that paragraph is all about. During the first 2 rounds, following the initiation of rounds, special checks must be made to see how quickly each of the US soldiers that you control become aware of the situation in hand. So again, going back to this German here, when he activated, I had to do something with the American involved. That was Gibson, and then various things. So I'm not going to go over to the American position because things have changed. This hasn't. But what the Americans are doing has changed. No spoilers. So let's just zoom out. Ooh, you can see the Americans there. Anywho. So when you follow this sequence of stuff you've got to go through, you've got different phases. 1, 2, 3, effectively 3 phases. The 4th phase is beginning a new round. If there are still active Germans on the map, you begin a new round. So let's go through those phases. And this is where we follow what's on here. There's a US awareness phase, and this only happens in rounds 1 and 2. During this step of the first and second rounds, each active US soldier on the map must make a perception check to determine whether it becomes aware of what's going on. So that's what's written here. Round 1, it tells me in round 1 I've got to do a perception check for each US soldier who can see German soldiers or vehicles. If they succeed, place the soldier's activation marker on the complete space. If not, place it on the unaware space. Which brings us to this action round track. So that's my current actual setup, as according to that photograph, so which I took. So we're going to put Hudson on there. We're going to put Evans on there. Just showing you how this works. We're going to put Cornwall, Ambrose, and the German. That still leaves 4 of my chits off the actual track, which I'll leave them there. So currently they're in the complete space. Well, at the actual start of an action round, I know I've taken the photo, these guys would actually be in the unaware space. The German is in the complete space. Germans aren't made unaware unless a paragraph says otherwise. So he's aware of what's going on. So we've got to do perception checks for all the Germans, sorry, of all the American soldiers that can see that German. So let's just say Evans is the only one that can see it. He would then move to the complete. These ones will be in the incomplete or unaware section. The other box down here, the inactive, is if a German or American soldier becomes incapacitated, killed, in action, they will be moved to the, or captured, they will move into the inactive box. And now this is where I made my biggest mistake in the first mission, is how these actual boxes stroke things become spaces. There are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces which are working on his horizontal. And those are just the spaces. These actual boxes, that is a box within a space determined by the column which the initiative track sits on. So this Evans counter, he's in the complete space, and he's in the looks at the second column based on his initiative. If he moves up to here, he'll be in the 1 turn space, still in the 3rd column. third column, second column. I was treating these all as individual spaces. That is not true and incorrect. That's round one. You would actually determine who was aware, and that is determined on who could actually see the actual German. So during the US awareness phase of the first round, after the activated German is placed on the map, each active US soldier that can see the German just activated conducts a PC check. During round two, during the same US awareness phase, and it's actually this one here, you make a perception check for all US soldiers on the map, even if they can or cannot see a German. And during round three and onwards, all US soldiers are automatically aware. What's the importance of awareness? Well, soldiers can't do anything unless they're aware. And we'll come to that shortly, because we're looking mainly at this track at the present moment. The next step is the event phase. But you could only do it's not done on round one, and you do an event check by rolling the two dice and adding them together. So if we rolled that, that would be 9 plus 7 is 16. We would look at 16 column in that paragraph sheet, and that would then tell me, I say 16 column, I move the 16 number to the event column on that sheet, and that will tell me if there is or is not an event. Remembering when you're rolling these two dice in that manner, the zeros are zeros. So 0, 0 is actually 0, 9, 9, which is the highest score you can get, is 18. There are three ways you can roll those dice. That's one of them. Then after the event phase, we start into the action phase. And this, you can see, is split into 4 sections. The first one is initiative. To determine initiative, you roll 2 dice, one for each side. And yes, I have green for Americans, blue for Germans. So in that situation, the Americans would win the initiative. If those dice are tied, then the Germans win the initiative, which then gives the side who has the initiative the advantage. There's one exception. As we know with all these rules, they love their exceptions, but it's quite a relevant one. If that paragraph that activated the Germans to actually go into round declared that anyone had the advantage already, you would ignore the result of this dice. You wouldn't ignore the dice, I'll come into why in a moment, but you ignore who actually gained the advantage because the paragraph has already dictated to you who has it. And this is the importance of those rolls. So we had 5. I'll leave the 5 there for the Americans, and it was 3 for the Germans. These dice tell us where to place these counters in this grid. We know the Germans have the disadvantage, so they'll be looking at the disadvantaged spaces, which are in blue. The Americans have the advantage, they'll be looking at the advantage spaces in the yellow. What I do now is I look on each of these columns for where, I'll just zoom that out a little bit, okay, for where each of these counters correspond with the 5. So if we look on this column here, the number 5, and we're looking at advantage, so I'm only looking in the white, occurs 2, 3. Let me just zoom that in for a moment. Yeah, so that is a 5. Eyesight's not great. There we go. So that would end up there. And notice that red, that 5 is in the red. So there's a potential for that guy to panic. So anyone that was had initiative 1 would end up in the same box with the potential to panic. We'll come to panic in a moment. Number 2 with a 5. Not in that. There it is. So he will actually get, and notice it's black, there's no red, he'll be getting 2 turns. Whereas this guy might get 1 turn, might get no turns, because he might panic. Okay. This guy number 3, he'll end up, again looking at 5, in that column. It's written in black, so therefore no chance of panic at the moment. Might panic if he gets shot at. Ambrose, soldier A, who's got a 4. Where are we looking for 5 on him? 4. And that's 5. And he has a potential to panic. So we'll put him to the side. And the German, who I've named Nyman, go with his N. And he's rolled a 3. So we're looking for 3, and we're looking for 3 in the disadvantage. So he will be having 2 turns, and also it's not in red, so he won't panic. That completes the action round marker placement. If we now have to check to see if either of these soldiers panic, so I need to go through the panic rules. Which also brings us to the command rules. This is where it's all a lot of rules are integrating. We'll look at the command first and then go back to those soldiers to see if they panic. So it says, when a US soldier's initiative die result is printed in red, which those 2 are, it means that the soldier has a chance of panicking. Hence why I put them to the side. If he is out of command. To determine if a soldier is in command, add his initiative to the initiative ratings of all other active US soldiers in the hex. Well, we haven't set any hexes up here. We're just going by what's on here. So, and Hudson's initiative, I know, is 1. So let's say he is actually stacked with Ambrose, whose initiative is 5. If the total is less than 5, he is out of command. So Hudson would not be out of command, and at that point Ambrose, because Hudson's in the hex with him, makes their total 5 for initiative. So as it says, if this sum is 5 or more, the soldier is in command. If the total is less than 5, he is out of command and liable to panic. Now let's say Hudson was not stacked with Ambrose and is not within command range, which we'll come to in a moment. He would, and he's not stacked with anybody else, he would panic, and his marker would shift from that spot down to that spot. So we'll leave him there. We'll say he's not in the stack with Ambrose. Being in or out of command only affects the chance of a soldier panicking during the active round marker placement, which we're doing at the moment. It has no effect on a soldier panicking as a result of combat. Combat, if you get shot at, a soldier could panic as well. But this is purely based on the, are they in command range? Which brings us to command range. US commanders, now that was the 2 guys on my sheet. Let me just bring that up again. If you haven't watched the previous video, why haven't you watched the previous video? On here, let's just bring this up. We can see Ambrose is marked as a commander, and so is Bell. The other 6 soldiers are not. So I have 2 commanders in the field. Having a commander makes each of the guys quite expensive. A commander has a command radius consisting of the hex he occupies and all hexes within 2 hexes of the hex he occupies. So he's got a command range of the hex he's in, plus all the hexes within 2 hexes of him. And a commander exerts his initiative rating, in this case Ambrose, into all these hexes as long as he is active, so he's not incapacitated, dead. And he is added to the initiative ratings of all US soldiers occupying those hexes. It then gives an example. The commander with initiative of 4, Ambrose, exerts 4 initiative points into all the hexes within 2 hexes of his hex. Any US soldiers, including another commander, in any of those hexes can use those 4 points towards keeping himself in command. And the effects of command radii are reciprocal. That is, a commander can use the initiative ratings of soldiers within his command radius to contribute towards keeping himself in command. Because remember, Ambrose only has an initiative of 4. So if he had no other soldiers, oh, the iPad cut off. If he had no other soldiers within 4 hexes of him, then he would be subject to panic. But let's just say the other 3 soldiers are within 4 hexes of him, at 2 hexes, he wouldn't panic. And this is why, if we now go down to my current game, I've got my guys all together. That's Team A, well actually Team B, because it's commanded by Bell, which is my scouting team, and Team A, commanded by Ambrose, is my fire team. And notice how close they are together to maintain that command radius, because I really don't like my guys panicking just because they've moved out of range. Therefore, going back on Hudson, who did panic because we said he's not within those 2 hexes, that means he will not get any activities during the turn. He is immobile. And then at the end of the round, when everything has been done up here, he will drop, get marked with a pro marker and then be marked complete. So now looking at that action track as it is set up, as if it was there. Yeah, where's the German gone? Oh, he's there. Right, we would go through the turns with the advantage taking place first. Who actually goes first here with the Americans, my guys? I can choose any order of these to activate. So I could activate Evans, then I could activate Ambrose, or vice versa. And once they have done an action, and we'll go through what you can do as an action in the next video, their marker will drop down accordingly. So I'll get these 2 to go first. Then we go to disadvantage turn 2, which has got the Germans. And there's only 1 German marker. If there are multiple German markers, they are resolved in alphabetical order, no matter where they are on this. Right? And again, this was something I did wrong in my first mission. I was doing them in initiative order. It's not, they're done in alpha order. And to be fair, I was doing my own guys in initiative order as well, so I would have had Ambrose then count. No, when you come to this, and this is a whole space, you can do them in whatever order you want as the Americans, and in the Germans you do them in alphabetical. Once he's done action, that marker will drop down to here. We would have then 3 markers at this space, and I could then do my, because both of these would have dropped, so let's drop them down. So that's after each guy has activated once. Then I have 3 guys I can choose from, again in any order I wish. Once they're done, they are then moved down to the completed section, at which point Nyman will get his last action, and then we do Hudson will become prone and he'll be marked complete, and that would finish the activation round, step 3.4, resolve 1 action per soldier per turn. It does mention, important note, if a soldier is wounded or panics during a round, his action round marker is immediately moved to the completed space, if not already there. So even if he had 2 actions and he was shot at and he became wounded or panicked, boom, he goes straight to completed. He does not get any further actions that round. Once they're all in the completed space, if there are still 1 or more active Germans on the map, begin a new round, going through those die rolls, etc. Activating German soldiers. So as we know, rounds begin when German soldiers become active on the map. Should another German activate during a round that's already in progress, you resolve it in the following order. So during action round, there's a possibility that additional Germans may become activated because of a paragraph. If activation occurs during round, use the following procedure. Interrupt what is happening, stop what you're doing, and place the newly activated German on the map in the stance indicated in the activation paragraph. So we go through that whole paragraph again. Let's not cancel that. If the paragraph states that the German receives 2 turns, place his AR marker, i.e. this little marker here, okay, in the 2-turn space of the activation track using the current German's advantage disadvantage results. So that's what we keep. I'll have to keep a note of what those results were. If the activation paragraph did not specify that the German receives 2 turns, then roll a new German action number. Okay, that's this here. So you roll a new one of those. Yeah, these markers are shifting down because they're on the iPad. And place the newly activated German AR marker in the indicated space. So whatever this activation number here was, which we'll come to in a moment, you re-roll it again, and then it'll tell us where to place the new marker here. That's if he has, did not specify he has 2 turns, so it could be randomly determined how many turns he will actually get. The newly activated German has no effect on US awareness. All awareness is determined on that first activation. So if all US soldiers were aware, they remain aware. If some are unaware, only the German that originally caused the rounds to commence affects their awareness, which in this case would be little Nyman off the board there. Okay, I'm going to remove this off the map. So we've gone through command and commanders, how it affects panic, but there are 2 other things that commanders do, which we haven't covered yet. And commanders giving turns. So while performing actions during the action round, a commander, both US and Germans, can give a turn to another friendly soldier. How does that work? It's got to be in his command radius, and can even give it to another commander. When it's the commander's turn to perform actions, he can give his turn to another soldier instead of performing the action himself. So let's have a look back at what we had going on here. So let's say we had Ambrose up there, Cornwall here, and Evans is 2 spaces there. So Cornwall, Ambrose activates, and I decide that Cornwall, who's within his command range, will give him a command to activate. So giving him another turn. At which point Ambrose drops down and Cornwall moves up. And can then, because we're still in this space, performs his second action, and then that comes down again. If, oops, don't want to turn Ambrose over to 5, that'd be too exciting when I actually get to play again. If that was the situation, he can't give, and he was in command range, he can't give him more than 2 turns. There's nowhere for it to go. Also, once he gives Cornwall an action, again, he drops, he comes up. I don't have to do him straight away. I could still do his action, then do his action. And just for clarification, only soldiers occupying the 1 turn or complete space can be given a turn. Those in the 2 turn, panic, unaware or inactive spaces cannot be given a turn. A German commander will only give a turn to another German when one of his action paragraphs explicitly states that he does so. And a wounded soldier can never be given a turn in this way. The third thing that commanders can do is a commander can spend a turn to make an unaware US soldier within his command radius aware. So he gives them a nudge or goes, "Oi! Germans over there." The newly aware soldier's action round marker is then placed in the complete space. So he doesn't get a turn unless the commander spends another, in his next turn if he's got one, he can still then say, "Right, off you go." And a wounded soldier can never be made aware in this manner. They're not listening. It hurts too much. The next page of the rule book refers to US soldiers' awareness. Well, we sort of covered that, but I'll just do a brief recap. So in the first round, after the activated German is placed on the map, each active US soldier, and these key words, active. Okay, so anyone that's wounded, no, wounded soldiers active, I'll rephrase that. Any soldier that's incapacitated, captured, or dead is going to be unaware. So any active US soldier that can see the Germans, so you have to check lines of sight, just activated, conducts a PC check. So just because he can see it doesn't mean his perception is enough to make him actually think about it and do something about it. So that's during the first round. During the US awareness phase of round 2, each active US soldier on the map that's not yet aware conducts a PC check. So it doesn't matter if they've got line of sight or not. And then during round 3, all US soldiers are automatically aware. An unaware soldier who is attacked automatically becomes aware after the combat is resolved. He then places his marker in the final space, unless he of course is killed or incapacitated. And that takes us to partway through page 14 of the rules, and as far as I want to go in this video, hence why I've highlighted. I've read all these rules, but I'm highlighting things I definitely think need to be mentioned in the video. So in the next video, we'll be starting to do what actions can be done, German actions, and some examples. German activation when US soldiers have yet to enter, condition changes during a round, and we'll call that the end of the next video. After that, I say the action rounds and how that chart moves here is a crunch of the game. It's the one thing I struggled with when I was reading the rules, and I had quite a few people explaining, no, you do this, no, you do that. It took a lot for me to get my head around that. Because I was thinking, as I said, every one of these squares was a space. It's not. And I wish the rules had mentioned what a space was. Because that looks like a space, that looks like a space, that looks like a space, but it isn't. And that's the key thing. I've gone in a lot of detail of that. I hope that helps anyone out there get cracking with this game. After the next video, we will have broken the back of the main rules. We've got them rules on movement, line of sight. I'll probably combine those into one video. Fire combat, how that works with satchel charges and grenades. I'll probably put that in one video. And then I'll do assault combat with minefields, booby traps, damage in a sort of last video. And that would take us all the way up to page 27, which I mentioned is where we're going to get to. After that, I'll do an episode on how campaigns are done, and then I'll have to do a deep dive once I sort of know there's vehicles coming, which I think there might be in this because the rules are before the mission 2. I'll go into the vehicle rules as well. Anyway, let me bring you back up for the round off. Well, I hope that was helpful. These rules, though not overly complex at the time, and I suppose even now to today, they do introduce some interesting concepts that you don't see in most games. So when I was doing mission 1 back in January 2023, I did struggle. I had a lot of fun, but I did struggle. And it was by putting up those videos that I had quite a lot of comments saying, you can do it this way, this is the way it's meant to be done. And some of those comments were in conflict with each other. So that was interesting as well. So that meant that quite a few players had been doing that action sequencing correct. And when I started mission 2, I thought, A, I reread that section, B, I went through back all the comments I had, and C, I sat down and read that crunch of that rules in detail till I got my head fully wrapped around it so I could present it to you guys, and I hope it made a lot of sense. If it didn't, not much I can do above what I've done already. Anyway, time's marching on. I actually want to get on to doing this 4th action round, and maybe the 5th and possibly the 6th in the next video, progressing what's going on the board. And you're thinking, woo, I haven't dropped action rounds 1, 2 and 3 as yet. That'll be tomorrow. We're shooting this in the evening on the 1st of November. So probably on the 2nd, maybe the 3rd November, depending on what my release schedule will be. Action rounds 1, 2 and 3 will be dropping onto my channel. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed what I've done. If you can hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already and you enjoy what I do, and the notification bell reminds you that I send something up. But finally, comments. I love them. Bring them through. I respond to everyone at the present moment in time. I mean, obviously my subscriber base gets to 25,000. Yeah, right, okay. I probably couldn't respond to them all. But as it is at the present moment, I've just breached last night, was it the night before, 700 subscribers. So thanks you to all you guys. Keep joining, keep playing, have fun, because that's what it's all about. Bye, Internet.